I'm going to do a really quick video to show you the parts of a book. So this is a paperback book, and you have the front, the spine, the back. All right, this right here, called the foredge. Right, this is the foot, and this is the head. All right. Now, a hardbound book, especially with things like ribbons or headbands, those little pieces of cloth that might be stuck back in there right between the spine binding and the actual text block, that has some more parts to it. I'm just going to look at paperback. All right, so if you were to take off the cover, because you can, the cover is one piece. Most of these books are perfectly bound. Okay, now what I mean by that is that they have a glue binding right down in here. And if you look, each page as part of a block that has been trimmed is glued to each other. There's just a line of hot glue that goes in there, and the spine is laid open on it, and then the hot glue is applied, and then the pages are put in there, and then it's folded and closed up. That's called perfect binding, not because it is beyond, correction or doesn't have any mistake. It's just that's the name for that type of glued binding. All right, very thin line of glue. Um, Most of modern books are going to be made of acid-free paper and acid-free glue. If it isn't, then as time passes, the acid is going to weaken the integrity of the gluing and eat away at the pages. You're going to get a paperish smell um, from the book. It takes a couple years, and then as you open it and work through the book, sometimes there's cracking that happens right along here because the glue is no longer strong or flexible. That's what happens when a publisher or a printer makes a run of books that is not really meant to last a long time. They're going to use the cheapest material and just to lower their expenses so they can sell it at a certain price point and make some money on it. All right, a low price point because maybe it's just a magazine that people read once and then throw away or whatever. Very cheap material things that are not meant to last a long time. They're much more ephemeral than anything, right? So for a good paperback book, they're going to keep things acid free. Now, you got your front cover, your back cover, and then on the inside parts are called your end pages. Uh, Here, this is just your inside back cover, okay? Now, right away, you can begin with material, and I hope you can follow along with your copy of About Time. You see that this publisher and printer working together in the design of the book have decided to start right away with material they want you to read, and they hope makes an impact. These are reviews and sort of blurbs from other writers about what they think of this book. Now, many times these writers are getting paid for this. Sometimes they receive a benefit as well. Other people review their books and then they review in return material. So it's sometimes it's sort of laughable. You can look at the review and you can see that they went overboard and they put a lot of small reviews there trying to convince you that the book is good. I don't want to say that that's never the case. It's just that this in the industry world, this doesn't really mean much. There are a few reviewers and publishers that will not do this unless they think the book is great. Okay, and so if you get a review or a promotion or a blurb from them, that means something. But other times it's just you can buy this sort of thing. So and I actually want you to read through those in About Time because you'll see the hyperbole. All right, so this many times the reviews are going to be fantastic. And what if they actually asked for honest promotional blurbs, right? And then they got back five that said this book is horrible. This book is weak, or this book is mediocre. Could be a range of negative. Will they put that in there? Of course not. Okay, so they're not gonna put that in there. They're gonna cherry pick the best ones to kind of get you prepped to view it as a good experience. Now, what I mean by cherry pick is just imagine yourself at a fruit stand and there's a whole box of cherries there, and you get to pick a pound. You get to literally choose which ones you want. So you'll probably move through the pile finding the ones that are the best, that aren't bruised, that aren't dirty, that aren't ripped, that aren't moldy, that aren't rotten, right? So that's the notion of cherry picking. Is it's not objective in the sense if when you looked at the whole lot there was the good and the bad, but then you were able to just select the ones you wanted and then turn around and present it to another audience as if this was representative, right? And so I would like to say to these publishers, why don't you just do 100 anonymous reviews and close your eyes and print the first 20 that you pull out of the box or the hat? And of course, that's not going to be the case. So this is just industry stuff. People do this all the time. I don't want you to take it seriously, but I want to talk about it. Now, eventually you get to a page that just has the main title, all right? So many of these nonfiction books are going to have two titles to them. The main title is going to be the biggest one, the biggest font, the most salient in the sense that it jumps out at the eyes. And then the subtitle is going to be the smaller, more extensive one that gives you more of an idea. In this case, it's About Time. And then the subtitle is A History of Civilization in 12 Clocks. All right, I like the structure of the book. You get the idea that this author picked 12 famous clocks in different cities and researched them. Is going to give you a background of the city, a background of the clock, maybe the clockmaker, and talk about the world at that time, or if not the world, that area, that country, that city, and that time. And you're going to learn a little bit of history through this. A very specific approach and one that is immediately and automatically grasped by the mind. And so this book is already familiarizing itself to you in the sense of lowering the mystique or the intimidation, if you will, by saying, "Hey, you can understand me. There's structure here. You're going to get 12 chapters or 13 if I want to sum up, and each one's going to be about a clock. All right, relax. This is going to be something that you can handle. This is what this structure is saying, and I appreciate that. I thought that was a wise decision by the author." Um, Especially if you're trying to make your living right. Okay, so let's go back to this one. This is just going to be the main title and kind of be blank. We call this the half title page, okay, because it's just one of the two titles. And, you know, there's nothing on the back. Many times there's nothing on the back of the half title. So what's the point of a half title page? Well, if you study book production history, way back when you had the makings of a book split into different uh, divisions or different shops, if you will. You had the actual printing of the pages happening in one area with one company, the printer, and then you would have the bookseller who would sell those pages unbound to people, and then you would have an occupation, a whole job, you know, uh, section, if you will, separate job called the bookbinder. So the bookbinder ran a different separate business. And then you could take your pages, walk into a bookbinder and ask for them to bind it, sew it, and you can pick your binding, you can pick the way it was going to be lettered, all that sort of thing. So books were a precious object in their beginning, in the cradle of the book production era, which really started around 1450 in Germany, and then in England and the Anglophile countries around the early 1500s, very early 16th century. Okay, that area of book history is called incunabula, right? Because it's coming from the cradle. That's Latin for cradle. This is the cradle of book production, and the reason you had a half title page was that um, the piles of pages that were tied together with twine or whatever were often put outside of the shop so that people that were walking in the streets can actually see the wares and maybe get interested and buy a book. So you can imagine how dusty it was out there and how many people with dirty hands, okay, because this is before water was everywhere. You know, piped into your house, hot and cold. By the way, the history of water is an incredible history. Um, Urban use of water, and you're sitting on a miracle if you can go to the bathroom and turn on the pipe and see water coming out. Something that has stunned many people before they actually saw it working. I digress. Anyway, hands were dirty, so you needed a throwaway piece of paper on the top that identified what the bundle was that didn't allow um, you know, the bundle itself to get too dirty. And sometimes they were open up so that people can look through the book itself and and peruse it and then buy it and then go get it bound. So this is really what the early books ended up with. Not to have title pages away, but modern books keep it just, I don't know, it's a vestige, okay, from the past. But this is your full title page. It's going to have the full title, it's going to have the author, it's going to have the publisher on it, and on the back of the full title page, from the vast majority of modern books, is going to be the copyright information. All right, very important. Um, Now let's just talk about what this is right here. Okay, the actual physical thing itself is called a leaf. All right, it is not called a page. It's called the leaf. Now I know we don't say it that way, but technically it is. It's a leaf, and each leaf has two sides. Right. So those sides are your pages. All right. So this is page one of this leaf, and this is this page two, if you will. But because of the different pagination, the different numbers that these pages have, we refer to these pages in a different way. It depends on how your culture reads the book. But if you like to read the book, as we do in the West, right, starting from left to right, and then you reach over and you make this right-handed turn with the page, right? What's happening here is whatever page you consider, whatever side of the leaf you consider the side that you need to read first is labeled recto. All right, the recto, recto, recto. And once you've read it, to continue what you read, continue the narrative, if you will. If you had to turn it, the act of turning produced the other side of it, and whatever the turned side is called the verso. All right, so the verso literally means the turning. Okay. So you have one leaf, a recto, and a verso. And that's the same with every one of these leaves. All right. Now I do understand it's common usage for the word page to refer to two things essentially. The page nowadays in common use is referred to as the leaf, and then you have the first page of it and the second page of it. So one is sort of a capital P page, and the other ones are small letter P pages. But that's not the language of bookmaking. All right. This is called the leaf, and then you have the recto and the verso. All right. Now, if you were to take away the front and back covers, the whole cover apparatus, pull it out, you would be left with something that's called the text block. Right? It's going to be a block of paper. Sometimes it's going to be glued, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's going to be trimmed, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's going to be both. You get the idea. But it's just a block, the text block. The text block is always going to have three things to it. Well, I don't know if always, but it potentially can have three things. All right. It can have what's called the front matter. The front matter is anything that shows up before the actual story or business of the book or whatever. If the book's about some war and the first page, the recto that starts talking about that war, that's and it starts giving you the story. That's the start of the core of the book. Okay, right? The book itself. But you might have material in front of it, like the table of contents, the dedication page, the promotional blurbs, the half cover sheet, the full cover sheet, the copyright, page. Yeah, you know, notes on the text. You can have a lot of stuff in front of it. In fact, you 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 know in this case you do have a front matter part of it. Notice from after the full title page you get the or side you get the copyright page, you get the table of contents, you get the illustration list, right? And then you get another half title page because that's indicating the beginning of the actual book. Okay, the core content, if you will, and that goes all the way that to page 230. Okay, and then after 230 you get the notes and you get other things as well. You get a whole lot of notes, you get selected sources, you get credits, you get the index. That's called the back matter. So you have the front matter, you have the core content, right, or the meat of the book, the body of the book, then you have the back matter. Okay, So that's just some terminology. The last one I want to throw at you really quickly is sometimes after a printer will make a run of books, maybe they made 5,000 books or whatever, or 10,000. They may realize that, and this is usually not their fault. Usually it's the author or the publisher's fault that comes running to them and says, "Oh my goodness, we forgot to put something very important. Maybe there was a huge mistake that if we don't fix it, we're going to get sued," or whatever. There could be a lot of reasons, and they want to put one more page in there or two. Now, if you get two or more, you made some issues. You have some trouble. You better fire your editor or something. But every now and then there's like, we need to add one more page, and the printer is going to be, hey, wait a minute, I've already done it. I've already made it. So in today's modern world, you have the publisher who's in charge of finding good stuff to sell to the public, to promote it, to distribute it, to advertise it. They don't necessarily actually make it. That's called the printer. You get publishers and printers. Sometimes the company is so big, they have the two parts wrapped up in one. Say like a newspaper. A newspaper can publish the news, but maybe sometimes also print it in their basement. Old style newspapers, okay? Nowadays, it could be a division, and the printer could be anywhere and say, hey, I'm not, I just make it. I don't know what this is about. I don't even read it. I'm just putting it together. That's my business. And they might say, well, it's all done. We can't put another page in there. And the publisher says, yes, yes, there needs to be. So printers have come up with a way to do this, and they'll cut a page to fit perfectly, or maybe just a little bit smaller. They'll put one edge of it glued, or maybe both, very thin line, a very thin gluing, and they will literally, this is too big, but they will literally tip it in, boom, close it up, let it dry like that. Okay. And of course, they're going to have their interns doing this for like a week. That's all the interns are going to do. Probably watch a movie while they're doing it. But anyway, that's called a tip-in. Okay. Because that one page needs to literally get tipped in, and then you close it and it glues up, and then you sell the book. It's you don't run across that a lot. But now that you know the terminology and that sort of thing, I want you to maybe keep an eye out for it, and let's see who can send me an email first that they actually ran into a book that has a tip in. Um, and you can feel it and see it, and it's kind of neat. Anyway, I wanted to use about time to talk about the parts of the book because it's good for you to have some basic understanding of the material object that your learning is coming through. The design is worth noting, of the structure of the way the author's mind is trying to organize information and present it to you. So I wanted to point that out as well. Now, as you begin to read it, the next question is this interesting to me? Is this author creating interest, maintaining it, and rewarding it? And that really is the mark of an essentially good book. And this book might be written only to people who love history, and they don't, they might feel, and they love specifics about history, not the big, maybe they already have the big picture and now they want to learn minutiae and details about things, and they just thrive on that. I know people like that. Every now and then I kind of like that. Um, and is this book designed for that, for the person who's already a history lover, or is it able to get your attention? Because remember, it's just about clocks. How can clocks be interesting? But I want to be careful because, hey, we just read a book that was really just about running. How can running be interesting? And we started off with a book that was just about diving into the ocean. How could that be interesting? And a good writer is going to be able to see the potential in the topic, to be able to say to themselves, I can make this interesting. I know how to do it. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise, a little bit of a delight when I show my reader how I can make this topic interesting. And I think a mark of a good writer is to be able to look at topics and say, nope, that's already been done too much. There's nothing there. Or nope, that looks good on the surface, but there's really nothing that's going to hold a general reader's attention for long. And they refuse to get involved in topics that are not going to work out. Sometimes the topic has an allure to it at the beginning that fades quickly away once you start trying to work with it. And good writers are going to be able to recognize what topics to stay away from and which ones they can work with in a surprising and new way, and they move in that direction. So I hope you enjoy this video. I know that most of these videos are a 15, 20, 25-minute investment, but this is part of your Associate of Arts education. And there's a sense that you're kind of like a plant. All right. Now this is coming out of nowhere, isn't it? I bet you didn't think you were going to hear about this in this video, but here we go. You're kind of like a plant. And in this dynamic, I'm sort of like the gardener. And the way I can ruin you is to not recognize maybe what type of plant you are, what type of light and nutrients you need. Now try to even understand you as an individual plant and just say, hey, every plant needs water. Let me overwater. Let me overwater. And I can just overwater and trying to get you to grow too quickly. And that's not good. Just think of how that a regular plant would respond to that. All right. There is a sense where if anything is going to stick, you and I have to put in our 2 cents here. We have to commit to this, and we have to also embrace the natural timeline of how this works. And there is no shortcut here. There is no associate of arts path or real core long-term overview of philosophy or of poetry or of writing that's going to stick if it just comes to you only in 3 or 4 minute videos. Sometimes there needs to be a chance for you to sit down, slow down, concentrate. And in today's world of digital consumption, through the screen, through the mobile screen, whether it's a small phone or a tablet, or in a sense, as you walk through the places of your everyday life, you will see information coming at you from all sorts of places. All right. Your attention spans and the way you assess information has shifted and changed, but you have the ability, you do, to concentrate again and to focus for 20, 30, 40 minutes at a time. A lot of people say, oh, we're losing that ability. Now, I would say, well, we're not getting it naturally like we used to, but we can still develop it. Our natural default way of assessing information now is very quick, very desultory. Now, there's a word for you. Um, that does not mean depressive or sad. That's what it sounds like it might mean. But desultory is coming from the Latin that saltar. Saltar means to jump. To jump. Desultory means it's jumping all over the place. And I have to admit, kind of like this video, right? I went from bookbinding to plants to desultory. Okay. But our information assessment is jump is it just everything is jumping at us from different angles of our physical life. I mean, all these voices are around us. Okay, and you need the ability to be able to handle that, which you do almost naturally because many of you all grew up in that. But you also have the ability now to learn how to concentrate again and to focus again and to put in the time. And so I want to encourage you to keep at this and to watch the videos, do the reading, take your time, slow down, and to remember you just actually might be a plant. The water needs to sit and be still and quiet for a day or two. You might need to come here and invest the time and put it in and go slowly through it and think about it and do it week by week by week and let that information seep into you and let you respond to it the right way. All right. It's kind of like cramming, if you put everything off until the last week of a class and then you try to learn everything in that week, you might actually get a good score on the test. But because the whole process wasn't organic, but instead was rushed and full of shortcuts, I think for the vast majority of people that do that a year later or even a month later, they do not remember anything really that of value uh, of the facts, much less the thinking process, which is much more valuable than the facts. So why even bother with something like this if you're not going to have any long-term benefit from it, right? If you're just after the certificate, that's not the type of um, vision or strategy that we can ever get behind because that is not aligned with lifelong learning. So do take your time with this. Do think about these terms. Review, write in your journal, watch these movies to the end, these videos to the end. Go slow. For this part, go slow through this process. And I think that you'll benefit from it down the line because um, that's the healthy path. If you look at how things actually do grow, I think that that our minds are like that, and there's a certain time frame for it. So I would ask you to consider that. All right. Thank you for watching.